Nice move by Steve Fisher here. Bring it into the
Welcome to the 19.9 podcast. We're continuing our journey into Hardwood Heaven with our guest today, Kris Stone. Kris is a senior director of global sports marketing for Under Armour, works directly with Steph Curry and on all things Curry brand. He's also a grad assistant with Coach Tarkanian at Fresno State, going way back, played alongside Jason Kidd in high school. I'm going to throw it to Josh Barnett, my co-host and one of the co-owners of 19.9, to kick things off here, talking to Kris.
Yeah, thanks, Meyer, and thanks to you, Kris, for agreeing to join us on the pod. I know that we've had a few phone conversations where it started off as a little bit of business and then it just turned into basketball talk. And so as we were talking, I'm like, you know what? Why don't you just come on the podcast and we'll just talk hoops for a little bit? So
That's great.
Greatly appreciate you taking the time.
Appreciate it. And what an intro, man. That's amazing.
Hey, I'll tell you what, titles aren't everything, but senior director of global sports marketing, I'm a little jealous. I'm not going to lie. I love it.
That doesn't mean anything.
That's earned. That's earned. That's humble.
Overrated.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna steal that intro, and I'm just gonna put like 99 instead of Under Armour in there, just to make myself sound more important.
Yeah. Hey, more before we get started, everything you guys are doing is so incredible. It's authentic. I'm a big fan of your brand that you guys have created. It's amazing, man. It really is. And everybody that we get this product in front of just absolutely loves the product. So congratulations on all your success there.
No, thank you a lot, man. That means a lot, and we certainly appreciate it, and certainly appreciate the people that you put us in touch with too to get some product in their hand.
Sure.
And just kind of we were talking on the pod yesterday with Nick DePaula and Ian Stonebrook, and we were just talking about the basketball culture in general and how the basketball culture, once you kind of get in there and you find your niche within that culture, everybody kind of takes care of everybody else, and everybody runs in the same circles, and it's just this spider web of links that come back to 7 degrees of separation of just the game of basketball almost.
Sure.
And so we greatly appreciate you kind of bringing us under your wing a little bit and spreading us out to some of your contacts and things like that too. And it's just a really cool thing to be a part of, for sure.
Absolutely. Met so many great people like Nick and you guys through the game of basketball. So we're all connected to the culture, and Nick is a walking encyclopedia of
it's
basketball
wild.
knowledge.
We were saying that yesterday.
He almost gave me he literally almost gave me like a migraine talking about like the most minute details of some of these some basketball shoes and stuff, where I pride myself on knowing a lot about shoes and knowing a lot about just the game of basketball and stuff like that. But then when he starts talking, I'm just like, man, I need you to be holding up pictures of these shoes. Like if I see the picture, I'll know them, but I don't know them by their exact minute detail, name, release date, all that stuff. He's incredible.
I'm like, hey, Nick, have you ever watched like a sitcom TV show that has nothing to do with sports or shoes or basketball? Nope. But the pandemic's been actually good for him because it's forced him to actually spread his wings a little bit and get into some culture outside of the game of basketball. So it's been good.
Yeah. I was prepping. I read his article with you. That was a few years back, but he's talking about the micro G technology and kind of how Steph ended up with Under Armour. So that was a fun read. I saw his name and I'm like, oh, there's a connection right there.
Yeah, I think I remember meeting Nick probably one of my first years living in New York at Slam. I think I was still working at Slam Magazine. And I had a little studio apartment like on 11th Street between 3rd and 4th Avenue. And him and his business partner, Steve, came over. And we were just that was the first time I believe I'd met him. So it's been, I don't know, 20 years later.
So before we get too far down the rabbit hole of working at Slam and all the connections and stuff, let's start at the beginning. And we always like to kind of give our guests the floor to just kind of tell their origin story of how they fell in love with the game. I know you're a big golfer too, so I want to get into that a little bit as well, but we'll start with basketball. How did you fall in love with the game coming up? We know that you're from the Bay. We know that you went to high school with Jason Kidd and played with Jason Kidd and won a state championship, and we can get into all that. But just from even before high school, like why did you gravitate towards basketball?
Well, growing up here in Alameda, right outside of Oakland, St. Joseph, Notre Dame just had such a rich basketball tradition. You know, Frank Laporte being the head coach there for so many years. As a young kid, my brother's 4 years older than me, and he played basketball as well. But growing up and seeing those high school games, it would be like the equivalent to kind of like St. Anthony's in Jersey, you know, when Hurley was there back in the day and all those guys.
His dad was there forever.
Yeah. It's like just a really small Catholic high school, 450 students, boys and girls. And basketball was the centerpiece because they didn't have a football team. And basketball is really the focus point from an athletic perspective to that school. And being around that from a young age, I was really drawn to it, you know, in the game and just, you know, growing up in the Bay Area, being a melting pot of cultures and people. Basketball is a connection to experiencing so many cultures, you know, and people, and you know, I just love the pace of the game, and was just drawn to it and competing. So, you know, again, I you know, just there's so much tradition there, and Coach Lippi, who's taken the program over, I try to support the program as much as possible now, but it's just it's kind of in your blood if you grow up in this area, basketball and that program.
That's amazing.
So I know that Jason Kidd gets a lot of the hype for that 91 state championship, but I did get the clip of it on YouTube today that I was able to thumb through real quick, and Chris Stone pops up and it says 14 points tonight. So 14 points in a state championship game is pretty legit.
Nothing allowed.
I mean, it was okay. You know,
Okay, let me rephrase it. It's better than the other two dudes on this pod have ever done in a state championship game. So you have that at least.
I think it was all like, I don't know, maybe the running joke is, you know, you get your shots in the first half and then Jason goes for his in the second.
Okay.
You know, so you gotta get the most you can in that first half.
He's known for assists, so he's got to get his assists too, right?
Yeah, I mean, Jason that night was actually 5 for 25 from the field. I think he was 16 to 17 from the line.
There you go.
But, you know, he had probably about 12 or 13 rebounds and about 13 assists. So, you know, and maximum effort. And I think every basket that mattered in the last 2 minutes he made, you know, or just made plays, and he just put you on his back. And the one thing, you know, with him was just like, you just knew every single night he was going to play so hard, you know. No one was going to outwork him. And any loose ball in the last 2 or 3 minutes of the game, he was going to get his hands on it. And so, you know, you just had to be ready and do your part and shoot the ball when it came to you, because you knew it was coming to you. So
might not know where it's coming from, though.
He made it easy. I wish he could play with Steph. I wish Jason in his prime was playing with Steph.
Whew.
That would have been fun to watch.
That would be something. So it's one of my favorite things about social media. I'm not a huge social media guy. I don't have any of my own personal stuff up there, just through the business. But one of my favorite things is following the accounts that we follow, and then when it's somebody's birthday, like it was Jason's yesterday, I believe, was all the highlights in the clips that all these different social media accounts post, because you do forget as time goes on, you do forget how damn good these guys were for so long. And some of the J Kidd highlights, like I watched probably just on social media, probably a good hour and a half of clips, because you go down a rabbit hole when that stuff pops up, you know, and just an incredible basketball player in general, which we all knew, but it's always nice to be reminded from time to time.
It's funny because, you know, when I first met Jason, was like in the, I don't know, 8th grade, I think, where he would come over to St. Joe's and play. I was a year ahead of him in school, and he'd come over and play. And, you know, his game was like, it was almost like the same from when he was like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old to when he was like, you know, 28, 30. It was like the same. And then as he got older, he learned how to shoot the ball and make shots, you know, which he didn't really have to do a whole lot, because he could just find a way to get to the basket and score. He's so much stronger and bigger than guys. But, you know, when we were coming up, obviously there was no social media, and you had a pencil and a paper if you had to get somewhere, you know. But it was hard to get into our basketball games because you couldn't see him play on TV. You couldn't see him play on Instagram. You couldn't see Ball's Life or Overtime Highlights or whatever it is. You had to actually go see him play. So, and there was such an aura around him, and people just wanted to see it for themselves. So a lot of our games were at community colleges or colleges in this area or at the Oakland Coliseum coming up. So it was a really fun experience. It was a great ride. And, from an early age, you saw what superstardom looked like, because it was absolutely massive. Him and Joe Montana here in the Bay Area were like the biggest athletes, and one's in high school, one's winning Super Bowls.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So,
there is something galvanizing about high school athletics, though. We've talked a little bit about the Baltimore boys and how the Dunbar guys, that city united around them. There's something about the accessibility and that you can see your kids go to school with them. There's something about that really can connect to a community. So that's cool that you're a part of that.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to talk to you I want to talk to you a little bit about Fresno State. We had you as I've got my Tark shirt on.
I love it. Yeah. I have a funny story about that towel, though.
Oh, good. You're reading my mind. You're reading my mind because I think in the ESPN it was a Darren Ravel article listed you as the Tark towel guy or something like that. And I was like,
towel prepare or something.
Role.
Yeah, towel prepare. Okay, so I'm gonna let you go. So tell us what does that mean and what's the deal with the towel?
Well, I mean, there were actual instructions of how to roll the two towels, how to make them damp and wet them, and then where to exactly place them under his seat before every game. And we were in Puerto Rico. We were playing in a tournament. I think we were playing against like Cincinnati or something. And some guys, some fan stole his towels.
Oh no!
And he's reaching around in the second half looking for his towels. And myself and Will Hooker, who was he was a graduate assistant, and he was the all-time leading scorer of Fresno State history. And Tark would say, "You're the only dumbass that stayed here for 4 years. That's why, you have that record." But we were scrambling. We were scrambling to find some towels and get those things right for him for the in the middle of the second half. Like, he was freaking out. He's reaching down. And then one year when I had him out to New York for my Elite 24 game that I started in 2006, I had coach come out in 2007 to be an assistant coach or a coach for the game or whatever. And so he walks in the Rucker Park, and some guy's like, "Hey, Tark, where's your towel?" And Jerry's like, "Fuck you." Fuck you. It was amazing, but he had a way with words.
Yeah.
I was going to ask. I think it's a good lead-in because I had that under the Elite 24. I was gonna have you tell that story because you told me that story on the phone one time, and I've told it probably 15 times since, just the people that love Tark. But what made Tark so beloved? Like, I'm down here in Southern Indiana. Aaron is in Southern Indiana too, and we love Jerry Tarkanian so much. And we had no connection to him. Obviously, the teams, you can see this are behind me, the 90 and 91 UNLV teams. The 87 UNLV team was great. He had some other Final Fours in there too. But it wasn't, to me, to a lot of people, it was about those teams, LJ and Stacey Augmon and Greg Anthony, Anderson Hunt, and those great teams, which were phenomenal too. But for me, growing up, Tark was always the guy. What about him? Just kind of what was it? Just his charisma or his look or his vibe? Like what
he looked like a sad puppy all the time.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron's wearing the caricature shirt, but the man himself was a caricature.
Yeah.
It's
like
Mr. I remember when I'm half Armenian, so we had somewhat of that connection. I remember when he hired me, he said, "Hey, Kris, if you're loyal to me, I'll be loyal to you." It was one of those conversations, and you just went on. He truly, generally, like so many other coaches, loved his players. Obviously, he was reaching out to players that needed help. He was if you ask Coach screwing a light bulb, he would have no clue. Like, he was such a basketball guy, in terms of, he really would sit there with strangers and talk basketball, and he loved the game so much. he was so mellow outside of the game. You know, he was a very mellow, relaxed, chill guy. But once like practice started, you knew it was going to be 3.5 hours of hell. Really, like it was no joke. Like his practices were very, 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 very intense. And the starters, the starting five would play 3 hours of defense and 30 minutes of offense. And it was miserable. So when they got to the games, it was like easy, right? Like, and he just had a way. Like, I remember Winford Walton, one of these guys. He was a McDonald's All-American. He transferred from Syracuse, and we brought him in. He's probably 50 pounds overweight when he got to us, and we got him in shape, and he got in shape. And I remember when he got eligible, after he had to sit out a year because of transferring. We had a lot of those guys that had to sit out a year when they had transferred.
Right.
So, but he was stinking it up one day in practice. He was really bad. And coach was just kind of like, Winford, go take a nap. You're useless today. Go take a nap. But it wasn't like, it was like funny.
Yeah.
It's like, he's not motherfucking him, and he's not like, but he's like, hey, go take a nap. Come back tomorrow. It's like he just had a way with the guys. The guys would laugh, and he was really just, he loved his players. He just, culturally, he was a renegade, and he didn't agree with NCAA and their principles and their philosophies back in the 80s and 90s, and it just, and you're seeing all this stuff come out today,
right.
And I think he was ahead of it, he was ahead of it. And because in anything in life, right, if you don't have the talent, you can't build the business, right? And so he was a player's coach, he's really, and he just had a profound understanding of a lot of the hardships that these players came from. And he had empathy for that, and I think that was genuine, and the players felt it.
There's definitely a camaraderie that you build up on a team like that, where what a person says taken out of context could really sound terrible, but there's such a bond and an ability to call people out when you know them on that level, and when you work so closely together. Like you said, 3-hour practices, like you're getting to know people if you're practicing that long every day.
Sure. I mean, he used to always tell the guys too, like, the greatest thing about sports is, you can't cheat sports. You can't con sports. And like he would say to the guys, you can go through life and you could figure out a way to con your boss to kind of just hang on and hang on and hang on. And you can con your teacher to get a grade, and you can con people. But in sports, if you haven't been putting in the work, and if you're not putting in the time, there's 20,000 people in that arena that are going to know.
Yeah, no
right?
doubt.
So
those,
it's just, sports can be very black and white at times, right? If you're not working, it's going to show.
Those Fresno teams had some super big talent and big personalities. Is there anybody that sticks out to you in particular from those teams?
I mean, Chris Herron was like, James Dean, as a ball player, just he had just such an incredible presence when he walked into a room. He had game to back it up. He played hard. One summer, I had Jay Kidd out, to work out with Jason was still in Phoenix, and so it was early in Jason's career, and I had Jason come out for like a week just to work out with all the guys and play. It was during the summertime, maybe like in August, and I remember it was Kris and I playing against Jason and I think Will Hooker, and we played probably like 7 games of 2-on-2, and it was a deciding game, and they ended up winning the game, but Jason went out into the hallway and just started throwing up in a garbage can. He's like, who the fuck is that guy? Like, because Kris was really good, and could shoot it and so strong, and had such a massive chip on his shoulder, huge personality. But, Kris was dealing with a lot of other stuff that no one really knew about and how severe it was, but that's just how good he was. He was an amazing talent. But there were just so many guys, like so many different cast of characters that came through that program. I remember Courtney Alexander transferred, I believe, from Virginia.
Yep.
And you could tell right away that Kris and him were going to get along too well. So that was interesting. It's different guys.
How did Tark get Skip out there?
Rafer ended up going to community college at Fresno. It was just kind of like a, somewhat of a pipeline, we almost had Stephon Marbury, we were close to landing Steph and Lamar Odom. Those were guys that, Jerry worked, man. He was at every single AAU game and every single high school game that he could get to. He was there. He's a gym rat, and I think by him just continuing to show up and show up and show up, it wasn't for him about writing letters. It was about actually being present. And that's how he got guys, because he showed a lot of love and interest. And a lot of the guys that we were going after, they could all play at Duke in North Carolina, but they wouldn't let them in those schools, So, like different. Yeah. And a lot of the guys that we had, at that time at Fresno State were guys that needed a second or third chance. And those guys were very loyal to Jerry and the coaching staff for giving them a second and third chance, So there was a connection right there.
So getting back to Tark a little bit and just talking about him being a gym rat, and Meyer and I talk about this all the time offline, is those guys, those old coaches, those old personalities that we grew up with in the 70s, 80s, 90s. A lot of those guys came from the high school ranks or came from the community college ranks or came from the small schools and just worked their way up. And we're just total basketball guys. So many of these college coaches, our problem with college coaches now is they're politicians, is kind of how we categorize them to an extent. Will we ever get to see the big personalities again in the college game, like your Bob Knights, your Riley Massiminos, your Jim Valvanos, your Jerry Tarkanians, or has that day come and gone in your opinion?
It's probably come and gone. I believe so.
Too much money involved, you think?
I don't know. I mean, I gotta be honest with you. Like, it's hard for me to watch college basketball these days. The game is slow. You can go 4 or 5 minutes without a team scoring.
If you're IU, you could go 8 to 12 minutes without scoring. Unfortunately,
it's tough. Like Bobby Huggins was a dear friend of Coach Tarkanian.
Love Huggy Bear,
and he's one of the last ones.
He is.
From that kind of regime. But those personalities are hard to come by now because, if you say anything to a kid now, it's like, hell, you're gonna get fired. So
yeah. Well, we're both reading the John Thompson book right now, and just a legendary personality and figure.
I think it's harder now to coach than ever,
Yeah.
Because you just
explain that.
There's so much spotlight now on what happens inside a locker room with social media, cameras everywhere, everybody filming everything, everything being recorded. It's like, I mean, there's principles that I live my life by to today through different coaches I've had in my life that it's tough love at times, and today tough love is deemed as like sometimes a bad thing, being honest with the kid and being really transparent and honest, and so it's tricky. I think coaching kids today is harder than ever because of all the, exposure and all the limelight that they receive at such an early age. There's a lot of false expectations, so it's amazing what I would say what's amazing is LaMelo, or is it LaMelo or the one that just got hurt?
LaMelo.
LaMelo.
Yep.
I mean, it's pretty amazing when you think about like that he's lived up to the billing with all of the attention and everything that has come to this point in his life. Like, I don't know if he's ever lived a day in his life without a camera in his face or something being documented, and to be able to go out and perform at that level at the NBA at that age, so young, it's amazing. I have a lot of respect for him.
I'm not a LeBron guy at all, but I will never say a negative word about him because of the way he had what you just said, the camera in his face and all the expectations that he had from such a young age, and he actually followed through and made it. is
overachieved.
insanely incredible to me.
Yeah.
Like completely overachieved.
Yeah.
Completely overachieved.
Yeah.
Curry, right?
So it
in
doesn't
there.
matter where you fall on the LeBron debate. You have to tip your cap to what he's been able to do with that immense pressure on him from such a young age. It just doesn't happen normally.
I agree.
No
I
doubt.
agree. I mean, I watched that with Jason growing up. He had that type of attention, but the social media wasn't there, and and he played 19 years, and to me, he lived up to it.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's not easy to do. But and he would say all the time, it's one thing in being a player in the league, and it's another thing when you're the franchise. Because when you're the franchise, good or bad, you have to answer for it every single night, and that wears you down. That beats on you.
No doubt. One of our things that we loved is just like the grassroots basketball and summer basketball. So I wanted to ask you just about the Elite 24, how you came up with the concept for that, and then any chance of bringing that back to the Rucker or any plans for that in the future.
At the time, a really good friend of mine that I'd grown up with, Kris Rivers, and I were, I think he was running grassroots basketball with Sonny over at Reebok at the time, or Adidas. Can't remember. But
Sonny's been at all of them, so
yeah.
it's hard to keep track.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it was, but when we were coming up, it was like the one destination was Nike All-American Camp, ABCD Camp. And when the other shoe companies started to really heavily get involved in summer basketball, all the talent started to, you get a pocket of kids over here, you get a pocket of kids over there, and vice versa. So now these camps started to become a little bit more diluted, and I was trying to figure out a way to how do you just get the best of the best together, in an atmosphere that's like really true to basketball. It's roots of basketball, and it's like, the great thing about the game of basketball is you don't need a key to the gym. You can just go get a ball and play anywhere outside. You have access,
By
right?
yourself.
Yeah, and that's how a lot of people learn how to play the game. It's just getting out to the park. So, living in New York at the time, let's create a game that's not about a sneaker company. It's about represent where you're from and represent yourself, and come play at the most legendary historic playground in the world, which was Rucker Park. And I think for a lot of kids like Michael Beasley at the time, and Kevin Love and Brandon Jennings, and the Jared Baylesses and DeAndre Jordans at the time, they have never been to New York before, right?
Yeah.
And for them to come out there and go play at the mecca of playground basketball, being a high school athlete, it was just different for them, and I think the park really sold it. The park was really like the draw. They wanted to go experience that culture, and they wanted to come out there and try to earn a nickname, so that was kind of, so we're just trying to create an atmosphere, and it was, for so many years, and it was free. People could attend for free. You just show up to the park and come watch 24 of the best players in the world at their age group play. I think 22 of the 24 the first year went on to play in the NBA.
Wow.
Which was,
Incredible.
amazing. If you live in that neighborhood and you can go see this talent, you'll remember that forever. And
You were telling me, Kris, you were telling me on a phone call that we had a while back that when the kids showed up to the Elite 24, you kind of just handed them their uniforms, like, here, wear this, and they were unbranded, and they were like, well, what shoes should we wear? And you're like, just wear whatever the fuck you brought. We don't care what shoes. And that had like a great appeal to them. Like, okay, I'm not being monetized or controlled here. I'm just here to ball.
Yeah, and that was kind of the idea, and we struggled with the right. I mean, we were buying their practice gear at Foot Locker the day before, because nothing shipped on time, and it was just a mess.
Josh knows about that.
It's funny. A
Too
dear
much.
friend of mine, Adam Yauk, MCA from the BC Boys, who had passed away, but Adam documented the first year, and I remember him giving each kid a little video camera so they can kind of film the whole event through their eyes, and we collect them and integrated that into a documentary that we produced and debuted at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2000. I don't know, 2008 or 9 or something like that. But Adam was just incredible. He was a genius, and really documenting this event gave it some culture. The way he frameworked it and and that really lifted the event. And it came at the end of the summertime, so it was like, hey, go work really hard in the summer and earn your way into this game.
I like that.
So that was like something that we tried to continue. And then as the years went on, the game kind of picked up steam, and we brought it out to the West Coast to Venice Beach. And so we hosted it there, and then we brought it back to Brooklyn and started to really build out these really spectacular venues, like on these boardwalks and on the piers, and with these huge skyline views. And it was just such an amazing experience for these kids to get out there and showcase their skills on that type of platform, outdoors.
I love seeing basketball in different contexts too, because like you said, that's the way the game is played. I was talking to someone last night, and he went to visit a student, English teacher, but he plays basketball. Went to visit a student in Mongolia, and first thing he got off the plane, he asked him, "Hey, come with me." And he's like, "Where are we going?" First thing they did, go to a gym, play basketball. So no matter where you are,
sounds like Bobito.
Right?
Bobito does that.
Yeah,
Yeah. We had a kid at Fresno State. His name was James Gray, and everyone called him Gumby. That was his nickname, right? He went to Westchester High School. If you look him up, he was unbelievable.
Okay.
First road trip, we get to the airport, and they're like, "Your ID, sir?" And he goes, "Here's my ID." It was a basketball, and he had his name written on it, Gumby. His ID right here.
Yes.
That's awesome.
True story.
Oh my
That's
God.
awesome. Well, hey, as we transition from Elite 24 to your role at Under Armour, I think that there's some tie-in there, because one of our favorite questions to ask on this pod is the playground game dead? And I want to preface that a little bit by saying what you did with Elite 24, and if we can see a revamp of that, we would be totally behind that and love it, just because you're getting
you guys are going to do the uniforms.
Absolutely, 100%, yes. And we have that on film, so we can play that back.
Some throwbacks.
Yes.
But yeah, we would support that in any way that we possibly could, obviously. But it's more about getting kids back on the playgrounds, because we don't see it as much as what we used to. And I know that part of the Curry brand, and I was doing some research on the Curry brand, that they're getting back out into the communities, or at least they were pre-COVID anyways,
Sure.
and revamping some courts, and trying to bring communities back out to the playgrounds. And can you speak on that just a little bit, and how important you think that initiative is?
Yeah, I mean, everything that we're trying to do around the Curry brand is rooted in purpose. And for Stefan, it's about, he has 3 pillars: eat, learn, play. It's one of his foundations. Eat right, get out and play sports, and educate yourself. And, where we fit into the puzzle around the Curry brand is like, okay, how can we have an impact, and what's authentic to you, Steph? And it's rooted in sports, right? So playing the game of basketball, getting kids out, living an active lifestyle, less time in front of the TV, and less time in front of the joysticks playing games, but get out and participate and get out of the digital world for a while and get to know people.
Yep.
And so I think this year we'll finish the year at like 7 to 9 playgrounds that we're going to refurbish.
That's cool.
We're doing one with Snoop down in Long Beach.
Yes.
So we had a call with him, a Zoom last week, which was unbelievable, by the way. It's just crazy.
Yeah, feel free to throw those invites our way too. We won't say anything.
I just want to be on it. Yeah.
I mean, he was in the studio, doing studio things, right?
Yeah.
So he was in the studio, and just the dialogue between him and Stefan was unbelievable. And coming from 2 completely different backgrounds in life, but coming together through through sport. And that's the connectivity of sport, that it brings all these different people together for a good cause. And the cause is to help kids. And, we're doing a lot of those things early with Brandon Jennings when we first signed Brandon to Under Armour, and going back to his community in Gardena, right outside of Compton, and in Milwaukee, and with Kemba when we'd signed Kemba, doing things in the Bronx and out in Charlotte. So it's important. It's for Stephen. The focus is really youth, right? It's even before high school. Giving those kids a chance and providing the right coaching. That's an important piece of it. It's we can go build these foundations and these pillars, but if you don't have the right people operating, keeping them together, keeping them up, and then actually giving the right advice to these kids, then it's kind of pointless.
We talk about it. We talk about it all the time. It's so hard to find good coaches and good refs, and we try to keep that in front of our parents' minds of take it easy on these guys because they're doing the best that they can, and this is a thankless job on both sides.
They're
of
doing
it,
it for free, yeah.
Yeah, and youth sports is just a monster right now too. But then in the same sense, if you're a high school coach, you have to build your program from your feeder leagues up, or your high school program's never going to get to where you need it to be. And it's kind of the same concept there. But good coaching, good refereeing is few and far between. Because of what they have to put up with. I really truly believe that.
Yeah. So for Stephen, for us with the Curry brand, it's really like, hey, he laid out the game plan, right? He laid out like, hey, this is what I want this brand to stand for and be about. It's our team just now going out and executing his vision, and when you have someone like him that's so, passionate about it, invested. He invested so much of his time in it, and he's out there in front of the kids, actually present. That just, and like Snoop said the other day, it's not about like money as much as giving your time and being present. That's very aspirational for those kids.
You can see it in kids too. Like when he's around, he is one of those magnetic personalities that the kids just light up when they see him. And maybe it's that connectivity. You've heard a lot of that too. I'm curious, just what kind of pressure comes being part of a team of a once in a generation talent like him. And I'm also kind of curious if it's changed because he's gone through this kind of metamorphosis that you see happening with Giannis a little bit now. He wins those 2 MVPs. Giannis won 2, and now people are saying like, oh, he can't win it. And now Steph's maybe coming back around where people are starting to recognize again, he's always been amazing whenever he's not injured. And it's just like there's these weird narratives that it seems like get driven behind the scenes maybe even and are divorced from how they're playing, but you become like a villain almost on that team. But I feel like he's been the same the whole time, just like this awesome player. So I'm just curious what kind of pressures come along, and then how do you navigate just the like bigger media trying to tell a story that you're also trying to tell, from the first person point of view?
Well, I can't speak on the behalf of him as far as the pressure of, I think whenever you're that great, like LeBron and Giannis and Steph, like if people aren't trying to knock you down, then you're probably not that great, right? So
Fair.
They ran out of shit to talk about. So they're just trying to create like false stories and false narratives.
Yeah, sure.
So,
media loves to do that shit.
Yeah.
So, it's like with Tiger and all the great ones, they're just going to find anything they could dig up to talk about. So he's never not been great. I think like where, the greatness of Stephen is in his humility, right? Like when Durant was making that decision and wanted to come to Golden State, he wanted to understand from Steph where his head was at, and Steph welcomed it with the understanding that both of them were going to have to sacrifice so much of their individual game to make the team work. So both of them were very, very humble in that aspect, and that says a lot about who they are as athletes and people. But it also robbed us as fans, as people that love the game, to see both of them in the prime of their career exploit their individual skills because they're fitting into this team atmosphere, in order to win championships, right? So, but I think what you're seeing now is because he had to carry, now he has to carry so much of that offensive load for them to just stay in games. You're just seeing and it's tough because a lot of the young players on that team today don't understand his game as well as Draymond does, because he played with such a core unit for so many years. So they didn't understand, like, just him giving up the ball early and getting it back, and the way he can relocate, and he's seeing things so far ahead, and the way he's setting guys up and telling them, go set the screen over here, and vice versa. So from that perspective, but from a business standpoint, when the tsunami, if you will, of Stefan took shape and took place, it's a gift and a curse from a business standpoint, because the gift is that you're going to generate a very big business, very fast. And that's what happened. The curse is if you make product that's not up to industry standard or up to his level, it could hurt the business, and it can expose things really, really quick. And we encountered a lot of that over the years, so there were some mishaps along the way. But that takes a lot of thick skin to get through it and keep moving forward. I think we're literally in the 8th year of this relationship, and we finally have a technology that we've come up with that was built off of Stefan's game called Flow. Cool. And this technology, it's the first rubberless basketball shoe ever created. And it's the benefits, the traction benefits. It's truly an advantage, and he's talked about that. And last week we're on a call with our innovation team for about an hour talking about the first half of the season and the way the shoe has been holding up for him and the way it's been reacting to his movements. It's amazing, it's really amazing how much positive sentiment that he has around this product,
Nice. That's awesome. I
So,
just got the insert. Just got the latest slam got delivered yesterday. So I just got the insert and was
he'll talk about it. But it pushes you, when you have an athlete at that level, it pushes your teams to innovate, to be great, to strive for better all the time, because Stefan's never satisfied. He's just not that type of person. So it's and he can do all that respectfully and do it all with a smile on his face, and so
that's a skill.
It is.
And when he kicks your ass in golf, he's smiling,
So who wins? Kris, who wins?
Go right there.
If we play 10 times,
who wins?
And I'll get my shots, I'll maybe win once.
All right.
If we play 10 times, but
he's
an amazing golfer. His father's an amazing golfer. They're just, great people, just competitors. Dell is one of the most competitive people you're ever going to meet in your life. And so is Stefan's mom. They're just really competitive people. And you see that, look at what Seth is doing. I think Seth is undervalued and
been awesome to watch.
Really Dallas definitely undervalued him.
very, very, very competitive person, but he just does it quietly,
Mm-hmm.
And he is such a hoop head, Seth. He really just loves the game of basketball. He's a total hoop head.
Well, one item you guys did not miss on in the Under Armour stuff, as you talked about, you struggled a little bit early, is that hat that you're wearing. Is it possible that we can get a few of those down
Absolutely.
here?
Yeah. It looks super cool.
I need one of those in my life, Kris. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Willing to swap them.
You're the man for that. So just to kind of wrap up here, this whole podcast theme is going along with our Hardwood Heaven that we're dropping during the Final Four weekend, where we're trying to highlight and tell the best stories of college basketball, and we had you on because we wanted to bring you on with all the Curry stuff and everything, obviously, but it was really the tie to Tark and telling some good Tark stories, and he's a focus of one of our stories in Hardwood Heaven. And so we've kind of tailored our last question to our guest and what they're good at. And so with NDP and Stonebrook yesterday, we asked them when Dr. Naismith opens the gates to Hardwood Heaven. I know both of you guys are looking down at his feet to see what he's wearing. Ideally, what would you have him wear because they're the shoe guys? But you bring people together. You are an organizer. You can put together a game or a contest or anything. So Dr. Naismith welcomes you into the gates, and says, Kris, this is your Hardwood Heaven. This is your basketball utopia. You get to do whatever you want to do with this place. What are you shaping up? What are you forming? What do you want to see? What are you getting everybody else hyped to sit down and watch in Hardwood Heaven?
Wow. Wow. Maybe taking some of Coach Tark's greatest players of all time and putting them up at the Rucker.
Yes.
Letting Lloyd Daniels go against like Stacey Ogman and Mark Wade and Freddie Banks and these guys. And
Freddie Banks dropped like 10 threes on IU in 87. I'll never forget the name Freddie Banks.
Yeah, Freddie would come out and speak to our team. And, I remember he spoke to our team a few times. And just, gosh, they had so many, Sydney, they had so many guys.
The Hammer.
Yeah, Greg Anthony and Reggie Theus. Just, let's put like a alumni game of all those guys in their prime and let Jerry coach both teams.
There you go.
Just make sure he get his towels right.
Yeah.
He told a great story, man, when Coach was coaching at Cal State, or he was at Long Beach, and they played Cal State LA, and it was Raymond Lewis. And I think Raymond dropped like 65 on them with no three-point line. And they had the Pondexter twins at Long Beach, and they were great players. And Jerry's like, I've never, ever in my life seen a guy this good, ever. And just the stories about that guy, legendary.
Yeah,
so,
that's wow.
I mean, Jerry was the best because he would just go sit in his office and you could just talk basketball for 2 straight hours about some of the greatest basketball people and players of all time. We were on a trip, and Dale Brown was a good friend of his, and we went to go play LSU, and Ed comes in, our athletic trainer's like, yeah, we're going to take the guys to McDonald's, and Jerry's like, fuck that, we're going to the greatest barbecue place in the history of Louisiana.
Yes.
So that was Jerry.
Man.
Like, and when we got to our hotel, there was the biggest. We had a guy, Kendrick Brooks, who was a really good college player and played at Fresno for us, and he's from the area, so Coach would always schedule a home game in that senior's hometown. And the spread that was laid out that night with the catfish and all of it was just unbelievable.
Man.
That's a culture, though, that Jerry,
that's
created.
a team building. Yeah, that's what you're saying, those relationships.
So that's why you think about why guys love a guy like Jerry. Like, he cares. He built that culture.
Yeah. Well, Kris, we can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on and talk Tark and talk Under Armour and Hardwood Heaven and everything with us. You're the man for this, and we owe you greatly. So we appreciate you, man.
I'm wearing my Slam shorts too right now. So my 1999 Slam shorts. Okay. I appreciate it.
There we go.
It's nice and Cali right now.
Oh, I love it. Come back on anytime, man.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.